Nobody has AI problems. We all have very human problems that surround this technology.
That is Christa Hill. She's the co-founder of Tacit Edge, and she's Learnit's very own Chief AI Learning Officer. Christa is on a mission to help leaders understand it's time to stop chasing AI tools, to really lean in and develop the AI literacy, judgment, and strategy that their people will need to thrive in the age of AI. And in today's conversation, you'll learn why Christa says that the most critical AI problems within organizations isn't the technology, it's what AI is actually exposing.
AI is a mirror. Why are we blaming the tool for this problem?
You'll also learn why one of the biggest mistakes that leaders are making right now is saying no to AI and the unintended consequences that decision can create across an organization. Christa is a firm believer that if your entire AI strategy is focused on productivity, you're going to hit a wall.
We can't be running the business like it's game 7 of the Stanley Cup final every day. You got to give people game 1 days.
And why your greatest advantage in the future of work may be the one thing that AI can't replace. So Christa, let's say that you're out having a conversation with somebody and they're telling you about how AI literate they are. What is typically the first thing they say that immediately makes you think they're not at all?
They're talking to me about their experience in Copilot.
Okay.
As I don't want to.
Like I'm a huge Copilot person.
It's there's a lot of limitations there, right? And it is, I would say, the brochure level. It's a great tool, but it is not, I would say, a very wholesome exposure to the power and the depth and just what has been built in terms of AI. Or just chitty-chatting about some big win they got in ChatGPT, which is amazing. But I see these things all as being very surface level interactions with AI, which I think is quite normal. It's a very typical for where a lot of people are right now. But what it does signal to me is that there's a deeper conversation that should happen next, which is what do they really want from the technology and how do they see themselves aligning to it over the long term and augmenting where they are, and also level setting on whether or not they're using free tools, because as we know, free tools are not the full version, and so they may not even know what is out there and what's next. So I think that's the majority of those kind of conversations. On the other side of it is I've heard about this thing, Kristen. Can you just help me get started? That is that is usually the second party conversation that I have when I go out in public.
Well, at least for the first ones where they're doing something, whether it's Copilot, ChatGPT, at least they've got their sleeves rolled up and they're doing something. Now, when it comes down to it, though, like you said, they don't even know what they know. So how do people figure out how can I really make AI impactful, both for me and for my organization?
I believe everyone needs a guide right now. We have a lot of folks that are self-taught, and I would say that, as a Gen Xer, we've been self-taught everything. And so this is sort of our wheelhouse. And it's our biggest Achilles heel right now, thinking that we can just go in, start experimenting with tools, and we can just find our way through, because that's the way we've done it our entire careers. But this moment is much bigger than that. The core of the technology is incredibly powerful, and you need to understand what it's built on, how it's powered, and everyone needs to get just a tiny little bit more technical than they've ever been in their entire lives. But that is incredibly accessible in a way that it's never been in our careers. So what I strongly encourage people to do is try to find folks that are offering more than just tools training, right? Tools, we've always done that. That's been our go-to move. But this is a moment in history where we're facing reinvention, and tools don't help you with reinvention. They help you execute on that, but you really need to get deep and back, reconnecting with your business strategy and then aligning the technology to that new strategy. Because let's face it, the world's not getting any less complicated. The business environment is not the same as when you started your business, and it is a reinvention moment. So these tools will help accelerate that or keep you in a waiting pattern, depending on how long it takes you to get back to that strategy conversation.
And so what I hear you saying is the old model or way of doing business isn't really going to work anymore. So what does the workforce look like in this new transformation that we need to go to?
At the end of it, what I visualize is nobody is an independent or an individual contributor anymore. Everybody will have augmented AI working with them. So we're talking about junior employees all the way up to the executive team. And this is where we're really stalled at the moment, right? We have a lot of very senior leaders that didn't have AI on their bingo card for their career, right? So it's a little bit of a do I really need to learn this, Krista moment? But the answer is yes, that's where we're going. So if they can get to a place where their own literacy is at like a college level, and when you're self taught, I would rate you at about a grade 3 reading level for AI. So if you can boost that to a college level, which I said it doesn't matter if you're technical or non technical person, all of that is possible now, you can get to a place where the workplace will start to transform around you because folks that are augmented with these capabilities have an imagination of how it can go further. But without that, you're kind of still sitting on the starting line. So, like I said, starting with tools like what's readily available to you is great as a starter. But when you look back and if you could reimagine your business and what might be possible when everyone is augmented with this technology, it could completely reshape your strategy and what might be possible for your organization.
So you called augmented. I like to call it amplified. Same kind of thing. Let's use an example of either critical thinking, decision making, or something like that. How can AI augment you in becoming a better at decision making?
I would say it's not a substitute for decision making. I would say it's a great jam partner to help you to just clear the pathway of the noise and help you focus on the most important thing. So it's going to obviously interfere and give you an opinion on what it thinks is the most important thing to you to be focused on, but that's a statistical relevance in the conversation, right? So as you become more familiar with the technology, the conversations that you can have with it become more sophisticated. When you reach that level, you'll hit a wall. There's going to be a point where it's not helping you, right? And that is the best problem to have when you know you've hit that wall, when you realize your decision making and your strategic mind and your unique, like proprietary data set that is you is now neck and neck competing with this tool for creativity, for, great ideation. That's when you know you've hit the sweet spot and you have to learn even more to push that boundary even further. So I would say it's never going to be a substitute for decision making. It's never going to be a substitute for critical thinking. But what it is a gift in helping you get clear on what the priority is because it can't weight things in the conversation properly unless you tell it what the priority item is. So it really forces clarity before a commitment to going forward. And I believe AI is exposing that in the business arena in a really big way right now because we are painting AI on top of very confusing, unclear business strategies that have always existed. And everybody's wondering why it's just not going the way we thought it was going to go.
I think that you bring up a great point. I mean, you cannot substitute AI for decision making. It could be a thought partner, but it can't be your thought leader. Can you give me a specific example of where they've made this big mistake?
I see it all the time, and I'm sure everybody hits these walls within these tools where you're struggling with something and you're asking for an opinion and it gives it to you and you're like, that feels really confident and really good, especially if you're using ChatGPT. That tool is Captain Confidence. I call them.
It's always telling you how great you are all the time, right? It's like, "Hey, you're really thinking in the right direction no matter what I say."
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, I work on my own all day, every day, so I don't hate that. But I also know that it's not real. For me, I'm because I'm so embedded in the technology all day, every day, I am very aware that that is a synthetic experience made to give me a dopamine hit that I know what it's doing and I appreciate it, right? I pay $29.99 a month for that, right? And I know what I'm getting, what I'm paying for. When I see it out in the world, I see it looking like people delivering documents that I know they didn't read through after they produced the final thing. They did the ideation and whatever large language model they were doing. It pumped out a document and then they didn't go back in and re-edit it and add that extra 30% that is you, right? I can tell when that's been stripped away. And it's being in the tools and seeing the outputs of these tools regularly. I know what that looks like. So I can say to you from my viewpoint, what the observations I see is that's usually what I'm looking for. If I'm reading over work product from folks that I'm working with or teams that I'm embedded with, I'm looking to see whether or not that proprietary data set, like I said, that I know that is them is really shining through in the final product of whatever it is that they've created, or did they leave it at that 70% that is more the large language model than it is them?
I love that you bring up that point because that's exactly what I come across a lot is when people send you something that they can't even articulate what they're sending to you. And that's one of the first things I tell people. If ChatGPT or Claude get you back an answer and you can't explain what you're going to put out there, that is a big red flag. You work with a lot of different leaders and a lot of different individuals at Tacit Edge, which we're going to get into. But where do you put most people at these days when it comes to AI literacy?
I would say about a grade 3 or grade 4. And then you are the tallest kid in kindergarten right now if you're at a college level. Right? And I would say that even is true for technical folks. So technical folks that know the technology but can't translate to business value and business problems that we're going to solve, I would rate them still even down at that grade 2, grade 3 level because they haven't made the connection yet between the technology is new and exciting and we want to adopt it towards what problem in the business, what value are we going to go after once we have that. And so using this technology as a catch-all bucket, like, we see this all the time. And how we used to do this in business is that we would adopt and spend a lot of money on one particular piece of technology and it would solve like 18 or 19 problems for us in one swing, right? And that's how we got approval in our budgets to do it because they're like, what can this thing do? And then once one team sees or hears about it, they're like, oh, well, I could use it for my thing. And then, you know what I mean? Like, and then I'll use it for my thing. And we all pile on. But actually, the reverse approach is what we need right now, which is solve one or two things first, then invest a little bit more, solve in two or three things. Now let's invest a little more. Oh, but wait, now we have to go back and rebuild one and two because we learned some lessons in 3 and 4, and we need to find a way to weave them together. So now we're starting from scratch. But we're not because we have all those lessons from 1, 2, 3, and 4 that we can reinvent what we created to take it forward into 5, 6, and 7. So these are new muscles that nobody has because, frankly, we don't have the discipline for this, right? We're used to big budgets, big moves, quarterly spends. We're not used to let's spend 20 or $30 at a time. Like at an enterprise level, that is just not a language people love, right? They want to see big spend, big impact, and then everybody's just adopting and we roll the wheel forward and it doesn't roll back. But unfortunately, when we're in the weeds of AI adoption is about rolling that wheel forward, then rolling it back half, evaluating, then rolling it forward another half, and then back half. It is like, it's very frustrating and it's not for everyone. And it's really testing, I think, leadership just in general, because they just don't know how to navigate this. This is, like I said, these are all new muscles that everybody's developing in real time in an environment in business that we've never been operating in either. There's so many new pressures on leaders that didn't exist just a few years ago that it's a trying time out there for a lot of companies as they navigate this because they don't have AI problems. Nobody has AI problems. We all have very human problems that surround this technology.
And when you say rolling it forward and rolling it back, I assume basically what you're saying is that you're experimenting and things aren't working out, so you have to take a step back, learn from it, and move forward. That, along with, just the fear of trying to create a new muscle because people are always afraid of change and things don't work and people get frustrated, and then you have these organizations that I talk to all the time who are pissed because they're spending millions and they're not getting anything out of their
This
AI
is
spend,
why. Yeah.
right? But so how do we help somebody? How do we help this leader out there who's pissed, who doesn't know anything about AI? What is one practical thing that could help them save, let's say, 3 hours, even a week, that can get them some confidence?
This is a great question. The majority of it on the quick wins are productivity, but we have to remember that those cap out, right? So if your entire strategy is around productivity, that's not going to last. right? And productivity wins are also short lived when they're not strung together as a collective. So when folks are learning AI on their own, they're going to go after their own productivity wins, but they may not actually benefit your company. They're just going to benefit themselves. So having people go out, and I've seen a lot of strategies in the corporate world where very famously leaders have said, go out and get this education. I'm not paying for it. Bring it back in to the company, and everybody still has jobs, right? So people do that. They go out, they invest in the education, they come back in, and then everybody gets a little upset as to why the organization isn't shifting or changing, right? Because they made that investment in themselves, and those wins they're keeping for their own individual roles. They're not tying them to your business goals, right? So the real trick here is for leaders themselves. They cannot approve spends or projects on technology they're not familiar with. I do not recommend this. So you get failure at a discount when you're literate, right? So if they actually could get their hands dirty in the technology, build it themselves, become a maker instead of a user, just a taker, then the whole conversation shifts because they understand that AI is built to fail. It's not built to succeed right out of the gates, which is not how we've traditionally operated in the software realm, right? We are all about shipping something that works. And then when it doesn't, we blame people or we blame the developers, right? And then we go behind closed doors, we try and make it work, and then we roll out something again, but it's all very big ticket. This getting failure at a discount when it comes to AI is the most important first step. It's just understanding that mindset that you need to have, which is we need to start small. We need to start by putting our own masks on with the productivity wins, but then we need to string those together as a team, figure out what wins everybody got, and then take our next step together. We string those together and we try to build something bigger from that, right? So everybody can start at an individual level.
Yeah, so everybody can start at an individual level. They can get some productivity wins, which will get them some time back, which we could probably even talk about what they should do with that time when they get it back. But you also mentioned, Krista, string it all together across the team. What is an example of what that kind of looks like across the team?
I'm going to give you an example of an industrial company that I've worked with that is a manufacturing company. Okay, so I went in there. We started with the basics of a core AI literacy program to all win on productivity first so that everybody got at least 2 hours back in the first week so that we didn't worry about attending class time. Because the biggest thing that I hear all day long is like, Krista, I love you, but we don't have an hour a week to give you. And I'm like, well, how do you think this is going to work? I can't, through osmosis, pass you this knowledge. Like, we're going to have to, there is an investment in time. And I know that we've all tried training programs in the past, and there's always a lot of drop off because something more important comes up. But I say to people now, nothing's more important than getting you ready for the future of your job. Like, this is the moment where you need to make that investment. Your company needs to make the investment. And it is the biggest currency, the most expensive currency you've got, which is time. So we start there, right? We build off of just very basics, understanding the technology, where it came from, the fact that it's been around since the 1950s, how it's been developed, what powers it, what great data looks like. Now, what does your data look like? And everybody starts to build on this knowledge base. And like I said, technical or non-technical, it doesn't matter. We use the tools to help us learn the next set of tools. And then we use those tools to help us teach us the next set of tools. And before we know it, after 6 weeks, we've got something we built together as a team that helps and the whole collective. And again, it is about buying back that time. But I also want to warn people that when we make it just about productivity, you have to remember that telling people that they're not productive enough doesn't feel good. It doesn't
No,
make
it creates
anybody
burnout,
feel
right?
good. Yeah, it totally does. And also,
Yeah.
people's workload and their workflow have not been balanced since before COVID. Literally, like everybody created an elongated workday during COVID, and we never returned back to that elastic, right? So I would strongly caution companies against saying, well, you got 3 hours back, so now we're going to fill it with these other things. What people really need to start envisioning the future of their jobs and the company and what value looks like, they need time. They need time to think. And we can't be Running the business like it's game 7 of the Stanley Cup final every day. You gotta give people game 1 days, right? So let's get us back to a game 1 day instead of being on game 7 every day. And once we're back to a game 1 day, then we've got that cognitive space to really start thinking about the future. So what I'm talking about here is lifting the floor of literacy so everybody's up now at a new level together. Then once that floor is up, we give them space so that they can breathe, so that they can think, give them a few weeks there. Then we turn our direction to the ceiling and say, okay, now that we've got this space, what are the new things that we could think about that are, again, not going to fill the time? We're going to continue to work effectively like this, but we're going to go after new value we've never been able to go after before.
For us learning and development people out there, we love the carve out the time, or the first thing you do is create the space to be able to do the training, right? Because you can't just drill it into somebody's head through osmosis. Now, once you get everybody up to this certain level, right, where you have the time to think, this is where I believe, you got a big time product management background. So using that time, where do you start with? Do you start with the solution? Do you start with, I mean, what does the thought process go there?
This is the moment where we can rethink strategy. And if everybody has more time to sit in a strategic conversation, we start carving out that time when that space exists, right? So, what if we got the team together once every 2 weeks for half an hour to do a version of like a greenhouse meeting? That isn't a green light meeting, but it's a greenhouse meeting. Right, where we could sit in there and we can ideate on things we wish we always could have done for our customers. Every team has a thing they wish that they know is a support that the customer needs or a product that they've always wanted to build. They've known that's there for a really long time, but because we are in the weeds, we don't have time to go after it. But what if we did? Right? So you need a few weeks of folks just getting into that mode and reconnecting with the problems that they see that your customers have that you try to not see because you're too busy. And when we can unlock those, that becomes the bucket where we can start to look and say, okay, what technology is just now possible that would allow us to go after that thing? What would create another market differentiator around our customer base that we can leverage for this next era? Because that's really where the opportunity in AI is. It is about going after things you've never been able to go after before because you were too busy, you couldn't see them, or you know that they're there, but you couldn't acknowledge them, right? But now that the team has some space to sit with that, it becomes possible. Right. But without that space and that breathing room, you're just going to be feeding it to the teams and they're going to resist because we haven't solved that first problem, which is what's in it for me. That just means it's going to be more work for me that I'm already trying to smash into an already overcrowded workday. I'm already overserved in the world. We haven't answered that question, what's in it for me? But if we take this literacy first approach and we get them that space and you let them sit in that space for a few weeks, you answer that question. They now got what they've always wanted, and now they're going to be way more open to seeing the what's next.
Now, wouldn't you say, though, when it comes down to what's in it for me, it's also very important to clarify authentically that what it is for me for learning these tools is not that we're going to replace you, that the human advantage still exists, right?
Absolutely. And the literacy gets you that because the more literate people are in the technology, they know the limitations and instantly that's not a problem anymore. Right. So if you get someone in the core of the technology and they've, even if, like I said, even if they're not technical and they built AI for themselves, they see that struggle on the first mile, which is figuring out the problem we're going to solve. They get through the messy middle of configuring the tool that they're trying to learn how to use. And then they understand and see the last mile problem that exists, which is how do we make it real and how do we scale it? Right. So they start to see that these three factors alone make it very brittle. And there has to be a human in the loop around every side of this because everything that you build is going to degrade in real time around you. So it requires a human to constantly be going in and making sure that it's working properly, that we're getting the right result that we want. It's not a one and done thing. We're talking about turning every human into their own personal development team. which means they need to learn how to manage technical debt. And if you're a person that's worked in development, you know what a nightmare that is.
For us non-technical people, what is technical debt?
Some code that you shipped, that the second you ship it, it starts to age just like the wrinkles under my eyes. Okay. So if you are not applying a proper routine to post things, it will get out of hand. And so that's the best way that I can describe that, right? Like everything we build as humans degrades. Nothing we're doing here is one and done. It's not like we're implementing and learning how to use Excel and then it stands still for 15 years like it did. What happens when the technology moves? Well, guess what? It takes a huge leap every 5 months. So, what happens if that thing that I built 6 months ago all of a sudden just stops working because this company bought this company and this is where we built it and now it's broken, right? So, this is going to be the new reality that we're all working in. And like I said, that core literacy really unlocks that for you, that you understand that this is a junior employee that you have along for the ride, but they need constant oversight, they need constant training. And oh my gosh, they are not a threat to your job. I know we have a lot of that narrative out in the world. And it's unfortunate because if you're a builder and you're really in it, you instantly start to see where your value is and you just turn down that noise because you know that, yes, will I be smarter than this AI? No, it has more IQ points than me. I absolutely know that, right? It has more IQ points than all of us at this point. But does it have our human knowledge, like our ability to rationalize and make great decisions, to exercise critical thinking, and to have empathy? No, it doesn't have that. And, when you think about our human language is all that it has, how much nonverbal language we have between us as humans is enormous. And I think we're discovering that in real time, that something can mimic having a conversation with you, but that's not humanity, right? And that's not real value in the workplace. It's just having a conversation with a spreadsheet, right? That spreadsheet can't do everything for you. Excel cannot run my business. I still have to run it. It's the same thing, but you don't know that unless you start building it yourself.
I want to go back for a second to the greenhouse meetings where you get everybody together and come up with ideas for the business, and which I think is great. But a little practical tip when you're having this conversation, you're obviously augmenting it, amplifying it with an AI tool. What would be your go-to choice for this?
I always record every meeting. So I'm a stickler for transcription. So there's multiple tools that I use for this. Fireflies is one of them. The other one is Fixer AI. And if you have Microsoft Teams in your organization, just run the transcription in every meeting. Once you have those core transcripts, you can create an archive of conversations that you've had that you can put into large language models and you can start to spot trends, right? So give these models spreadsheet problems. This is really where they excel right now. So if we capture all the magic that the humans can generate, because this is what we are fantastic at, we are closest to the context, we're closest to the customers, we're closest to the real world where what we do is being used and how we serve people. Get that in there. What it can start to do is start to filter through some of the noise and you can start to prioritize what could go into another round of research, right? So it's not going to be a green light to get started and try things, but it's definitely a place where you can aggregate your thinking and start to really think through, like, what could this look like if we went after this? How many other teams are impacted if we do? What does this look like for our workload right now? And what are some risks that we need to be aware of around usability, feasibility, viability, value, and morality? Should we build this thing? Right? So these are new conversations that we can have when we have a bucket of things to consider and we have new tools at our disposal to help us test what could bring us value that we haven't had before. So that would be, I would say, a very practical way. So it's really easy to set up these sessions, by the way. Literally, you just take post-it notes into a room, you just throw out a meeting invite to you and however many people are in your team. Everybody accepts a meeting invite. Have snacks, highly recommend. Humans love having snacks when they're ideating. Okay. And just post it notes and we play a game. Silliest, wildest idea you could possibly have that you wish we could do. Start there. And just like if anything was possible. And the second you start to hear that no because reasons conversation, that is very popular. I turn the room towards it has to be a yes and. So I start with one thing on my post it note, I pass it to the next person. They have to say yes. And now this other thing. Then I pass it to the next person. Yes. And now this other thing. And before I know it, we've got 10 things that are like crazy interesting. Again, not green lights, just a greenhouse. We're just growing ideas here. We bucket the ones that we find the most interesting, and then we do one more bonus round that's like now even wilder. Like, just take the seatbelts off the Ferrari, you know? Like, if anything was possible, because once they're warmed up, we can go one layer deeper. Once you get that, then it's really interesting to see now that people have let go of that no because reasons, it unlocks so many things, right? Like I said, everybody has that proprietary data set. They know what the next move is. You just need to create environments where they can express themselves without retribution, without fear, and without coming off like they're not professional or that they haven't considered all the things that could get in the way. You just need to help them get to a place where they can just let go. And so this takes quite a few reps, by the way. But again, if you serve snacks and you make it fun and nothing comes of those meetings initially because people are not ready to make moves on them, but you just engage in that process, it's a muscle. People need practice. And that's usually where I start.
And what I love about that is, first and foremost, it's all human. And it falls into your mindset piece of when it comes to AI literacy, and that's stuff that's not going to be taken away by AI. It made me also think of a book by, I think his name is, I know his name is Jeremy Utley, around ideas and idea iteration. And he talks about it takes sometimes hundreds, if not thousands of ideas to come up with a good one, or one that actually sticks. And what you're talking about here, which is so important, is getting people to dream big, think differently, and do it in a space where they're not getting laughed at by other people. Because with the power of AI and stuff like we're talking about, who knows what's possible? All that I know for sure is that nothing's going to happen if we reframe ourselves and keep ourselves within these limiting beliefs.
100%. And we have to remember that people don't do their best thinking between 9 and 9:30 when you had that meeting. Like, we need to lay down that expectation that the exact same 10 people are all going to have their most brilliant ideas in that exact same window. Like they all didn't come in from, a challenging morning getting their kids from school or some fight that they had with their spouse or some, interaction they had in the hallway that really cheesed them off. Right? Like, we have to remember that if we create these environments where these ideas happen, when people go back home to their spaces where the good ideas happen, to, I hear this all the time, the shower, taking a walk, being at a kid's hockey game, or like wherever it is where people have and do their best thinking when they're driving home. Then when you do this activity again, they call on those things and you start to pull that out. So I think understanding that humans don't think in a box, we don't turn our best thinking on like a light switch. And I know that's wildly inconvenient for the corporate world. But if you want to tap into the what's next in your company, you have to start thinking outside the box on how you value people's time, where you put it, and what you do with it. Otherwise, this will continue to be elusive for you if you keep following the same standard and that template that we've been operating on for decades now.
One of the things I've heard you say when I was going through some of your work is that people don't immediately come up with answers. Everybody thinks differently, like you were just saying. So, first of all, as a leader, don't jump on somebody who's a little bit quiet and they may be thinking this, processing this through. But let's say I'm somebody who is processing it through. What do you do to capture those ideas so you don't lose them when it comes to leveraging AI? So, say I'm out on a walk or I just got out of the shower and you don't want to lose those great ideas. What do you do? Or what do you recommend your clients do?
Honestly, we set up a place where we can just do an idea drop regularly. And that's either a Slack channel or somewhere that we put these things where as they arise, we have to catalog them, right? So it's all about data and just collecting the data points as they hit. And then honestly, just having someone accountable to going after those things. So for me, I ask people when I start working with them where they do their best thinking so that I know what that looks like. And I also ask them if they're a person that thinks out loud. Like, are you that person in the meeting that is instantly full of ideas and talking them through for us all to see live? We all know that person. We've all worked with a lot of those folks. And we've also worked with the ones that are very quiet and sit in the back, right, and say nothing. And you think to yourself, like, what's going on in there? Right. But that's their process. So if I know that that exists and I know that that's how you work, probably about 5 hours later, I'm hitting you up either in Slack or walking past your desk and saying, hey, what did you think of that meeting this morning? Like, have you given it some more thought? How much more time do you think you need? What does a great contribution to that topic look like? What do you need? Right? How can I help you surface that? When can I check back in with you? Right? So it's the glorious circle back. I'm circling back with people. That's all I'm doing because I know that everyone's going to come to these things. And the more I know you, the more I know what that time frame looks like. Right. So it's being a really intentional leader right now that you know your people, you know what they need to do their best work. But to get to that answer, you got to ask the question, right? And the next one on one with your people, start asking, how do you like, what environment do you need to do your best work? Like, if we were ideating on something new, like, how much time do you really need to think about that? Because it must be like, how do you feel in those meetings when we do it? What can I do for you? Right. So, the more information you have on the individual people that you're working with, obviously, the better. And we're not talking about having to fully disclose our feelings. And I know a lot of people have a lot of feels around how we express our feels in the workplace. But unfortunately, we are feeling machines that occasionally think. We are not just machines. And I think if you put ourselves side by side to AI, you can see how different we are. So stop thinking you're a machine because then you're saying that you're exactly the same as these AI tools. And I don't think you are, right? There's so much to us that is so valuable that comes alongside who we are as humans. And as leaders now, we really have to start leaning into that. And that's one of the ways that I get at that.
And we, that eroded. I had a conversation with Dan Ariely about this through COVID, where things went to more remote work. And there's nothing wrong with remote work, but you lose some of those bondings and those connections with individuals, going to get a coffee, getting a drink, or whatever, right? And you become much more efficient or productive sometimes, but it's the messy middle too that really makes a difference. And I think it's so important what you were just saying, Krista, around getting to know your people. Everybody's differently. So great leaders, human leadership is learning how to lead one person differently than the next person, whether it comes to giving feedback or how they process thinking. I think it's so important.
Yeah. And, a lot of this I know sounds really basic for a lot of leaders, but it's never been more important than ever. And the things that you think you know, maybe check in on see how current that data set is that you have on that person, right? Things have drastically changed in the world, especially over the past 4 or 5 years, right? So what you knew about them a few years ago might not be currently true today. So just checking in again, I do a great activity, just a 2 word check in with folks where I put something up on the screen and it has a whole mishmash of names of emotions so that they don't have to tell me the story. They can just tell me what's in the room with us so that I can know. Right. So, and you can imagine, like, I work with technical teams and you would think, well, they must hate that, Krista. They don't. It is, they love it because it's accessible to them, right? Like, I can give Krista 2 emotions and I don't have to talk about my feelings. Cool. But then I know if we're going to make a really important decision today and I'm going to change the trajectory of the business and your 2 word check in was like agitated and pissed off, I'm going to be double checking on our decision quality today, right? So you want to talk about decision quality in AI. How about with our humans, right? So you have to remember AI is a mirror. So everything that we are asking about AI, what about critical thinking? What about decision quality? What about our ability to think for ourselves? I want us to put up a mirror and say, why are we not asking these questions of ourselves? Why are we blaming the tool for this problem? Or is this not just a symptom of what we already know to be true of where we are in the workplace? And now we're seeing AI really expose it. And I think that's more where we are, to be honest. I don't think the tools, like I said, AI as a technology is incredible. But what it is exposing is the things that I think we've been concerned about ourselves for quite some time in our judgment. And that is what we're really talking about. I don't think we're talking about the tech.
I think AI exposes a lot of things. I think it's gonna accelerate people who are high performers and working hard and great or whatever, right? They're doing things right way and they're looking in the mirror. It's also gonna expose the underperformers and where they're lacking, and it's gonna bring that to the surface. But I sent you this article yesterday. You don't buy into the whole something big's happening and AI is gonna be taking over everything and engineers are out of jobs and all of that fear?
Because I've been in the industry for over 20 years, don't let this beautiful skin fool you. I'm frozen in time.
You are, with that
I
great
am.
blue suit, by the way.
I'm absolutely frozen in time. I've seen shifts this big. I mean, nothing this big, but I've seen shifts and then I see the response that comes out of the woodwork. And we had I used to work in healthcare quite a long time ago. And when some of the first dictation technology came to the forefront and some of the early ways that we were starting to archive data and imagery around like CTs and MRIs and ultrasounds, there was a lot of commentary that we wouldn't need radiologists. That was probably the first time I had heard in my career, we will replace technology with a human that has a very defined skill set. And look, we now have an increased demand for radiologists, and they are adopting this technology at a more rapid pace. And I would say that a lot of sectors, because they see the benefit to it, right? They see it as being a partner to make sure that things are not missed that should be considered that the human eye may not track, and they see the benefit to that. And I don't see anyone saying that radiologists are going to be replaced. Like, we still need somebody who can interpret someone's overall health picture and have the conversation with the patient and bring that expertise to the table when there's something that's in doubt. Right. So I strongly it's really easy to fall into that trap thinking that we can replace humans one to one when you don't understand the tech as deeply as I do. When I can see it for what it is, and like I said, it's more of a mirror to our flaws than an accelerate to the best of us. It's not an accelerant of the best of us because we haven't even decided what that is yet. So it's not going to be superior in that way that it can exercise human judgment and move a project forward or rally a team or do the things that we need to have done. But I do think that folks are underestimating the power of the technology. That is one point of the article that I absolutely did enjoy, was that it was a reality check on it's bigger and better than you think, and it's time to give it a second look. And if you're using free tools, you are essentially using a flip phone in a smartphone world, and that was the analogy that he used in the article. And I thought that that fit the experience and the observations that I see, especially with executive teams, that they are dabbling and they're self taught. They're trying a free tool just as a party trick every now and again. And they don't have a real appreciation for the fact that if they went into a paid version of that tool and went into the cave and asked the question that they're afraid to ask, which is, will my business be relevant in 2 years? They're not asking that question, and they should be, right? And they should be using paid versions of these tools and going into that cave and asking those hard questions. And people that come to my learning environments, that is the first activity we do. We choose a tool, they get a paid version of it, and we go into that cave. And then now you know. Right? So wouldn't you rather know the answer to that question than hear and read about it from someone else? I think that when you come from a place of your own literacy and knowing deeply the context that you work and the value of that you bring, when you go into that cave, you're ready for the answer, and it might not necessarily make you afraid. It might get you motivated or help you plot that course towards something that is your next move, right? Not the technology. Why are we running defense around the tech? Why aren't we playing offense? Right. And I know I use a lot of sports analogy because my house is run by sports. But this is, for those who are uncomfortable with that, I apologize. But it's
I love
really
it.
about having more information for yourself than you're reading in the media. And I think this is just something that we all grapple with right now, just in general as humans. We're consuming a lot of information, and it's hard to carve out that time where we can just go do our own research. But this is your future. This is your life. I can't think of a better topic to, like I said, get a paid version of a tool, go into that cave, and find somebody like me if you need some guidance in how to do that and the questions you should be asking, and then how to have a conversation with this intelligence, right? Artificial, of course, but this level of intelligence to help you think about plotting a course towards something different, right? If your particular role is under threat.
So I want to give you a scenario, and this is actually a real scenario. Doesn't matter what the industry is, but there's an organization that I know that doesn't allow AI tools use at all, right? And they're a big organization, close to 500 employees, over 100 million a year. You're not allowed to use AI. I know individuals who work in that organization and are using free versions of Claude and ChatGPT. So for the leaders out there who maybe lead those organizations and are putting those demands of that you can't use AI, and their people are using these free tools, what are some of the possible dangers that they're going to impact their organization?
So that is the biggest, riskiest move you can make right now is just saying no. Because what that does is that forces those people to go underground and make decisions unguided, just again for their own personal benefits. You remember how we talked earlier about if you do that and you get people to self teach their way through without guidance and guardrails using unregulated technology, your risk is through the roof for exposure. You don't even know all the ways. And this is not unique, by the way. I was sitting at a conference 3 weeks ago and I was sitting next to the head of HR for a global telecommunications company. And she said the exact same thing to me. And then I watched over her shoulder her going into ChatGPT and using it. And I walked past her and I sat down next to her and I was like, I just want to let you know if you are doing this, you're not alone. And you're the head of HR. So you should know here are the risks of the thing that you just did, which you think might be minor. But now, because you're forcing everybody to do the same, you're creating a culture of withholding information and also not teaching people what use of free tools could look like. There are very safe ways of using these free tools. There's ways of stripping away the secret sauce. There's ways of making sure that you're using it to get something to 50 or 60%, and then you bring it back into your own environment and you augment it with the rest so that the private, the secret stuff stays in there. There's absolutely so many ways of doing that. But you know how you learn that? By getting more literate, right? And by sitting with a professional and somebody like me that knows how to curate that conversation and to know that humans are going to be human. If somebody can take a shortcut and get a win on the job, they're going to take it. The life that we all have right now is too high stakes, it's too high pressure. Everybody's got so much going on, so many demands on their time. You're asking them to not take a win? Like that, I don't know if that's really realistic for people to ask of their employees, especially when you can't go 20 minutes without somebody talking about some tool or just saying the word AI out in the world, right? So that is it says more about their overarching culture that we are trying to command and control human behavior, but we also have to remember that humans are going to human and people are using those tools. And so if you think putting your head in the sand is going to save you from a lawsuit as something proprietary getting out there, you're still going to be liable. Right. That the liability doesn't disappear because you put your head in the sand. Right. That's what I tell executives all the time.
Yeah, this industry is a regulated industry with confidential information, and imagine.
Completely unregulated. Yeah. And we're trusting a core group of like 5 individuals with all of our data too, right? So there's so much I can unpack there that is super risky, but I would say that it's a real privilege from the executive side of the conversation for them to say, well, I don't need these tools, so my people shouldn't need them. But I think that we have to recognize that privilege that is in the room when you say you don't need those tools. You have a very different work situation than your employees do. And also, you're leaving on the table, again, you're not building that strategy towards a cohesive approach, this technology in a way that is measured. Why not have measured iterative adoption versus shadow behavior? I don't know why somebody would choose that, but I do see it happening all the time.
I do want to switch gears. Let's talk a little bit about Tacit Edge and the type of education that you are doing for your customers.
Well, we started this company on a premise that we wanted to teach the competency of product management to everybody. And product management is the skill set of understanding the right mix of technology, people, and workflows to solve business problems. And we really cut our teeth on the technology elements. So I've had a lot of exposure to seeing the best of the best of what this combination can do for business across the world for decades now. And so it didn't have a standard of practice. So we wrote it and we delivered curriculum, and it's found around the world in post secondaries and just out there. It's everything that we teach and everything that we do. And it's never been more important than this moment in history where we are all technologists now. So technology and AI needs a manager, and you are that person. So I teach you the basics of what it is like to manage technology plus you, plus your team and the business all together. And what we're doing the whole time is we're keeping an eye on those core risks of where things fall down, right? Can people use it? Is it feasible? Is it viable? What is it going to look like over the long term? How do we manage it? And should we build it? Right? So that very when we're working with technology in real time that is unregulated, that has no guardrails, we have to get folks really connected with their core values. And a lot of corporate folks would say to me, well, that we have our values as an organization, but this is different, right? Like we're talking about a lot of anything is possible in the world. What do you want to be building and what do you want to stand for? So I spend a remarkable amount of time not just teaching the tools and how we get the value that we're looking for with teams and with leaders and helping them understand what is going to be a good fit, what type of technology is actually purpose built for the context that they work in so that they can reduce the noise about having to know everything. Now they realize, oh, I only need to know these three things because that's where we operate. Then all of a sudden the decisions around tools get really easy. But now we just have to make sure that on the way to regulations kicking in, how do we make sure that in a heavily regulated industry that we understand what we stand for and we write rules that are iterative. So when you work with me, you graduate with this thinking of how to manage this combination of technology, people, workflows, and the business goals. But you also come out with a code of ethics around what do I stand for in the age of AI? What is the beginnings of our policy documents? And maybe we're doing it tool by tool. Maybe it's not a blanket statement that maybe it's not 10,000 pages long. Maybe it's just very short and it's just a few paragraphs so that everybody's really clear on what we stand for and what we're using it for. And that we are going to progress as an organization together and we're going to continue to augment what that document looks like. Because, guidance, guardrails, and some sort of standard of practice is quite elusive for many organizations. And they're so used to these blanket documents kind of being that place where that gives us certainty. But unfortunately, again, we have to move very slowly and iteratively, and it's like 20% at a time. So just teaching that discipline of starting small, getting those wins, rethinking again, step 1 and 2, then 3 and 4, then 5 and 6. We have our core set of tools that we're all using. We're using them at a level we've never been able to use them before because we really understand them now and how they operate and where I come in and where the technology takes over. And yeah, that is very much the nature of the work that we do. So I do that for individuals. Leaders right now are really struggling having conversations that are very difficult around what the leadership playbook is. And so I've got a very special program that's just for executives, where every 8 weeks I've got 12 that come in and they find a peer network so that they can have these really difficult conversations around their corporate identities and what this technology really means to them, and leaning in the strengths of their peer group to navigate this terrain that we've never before navigated. And having a peer network right now is really important. And then, of course, we do individual contributors and all the way, up and down the ladder. But this is basically, it's all centered around that core literacy. So getting that floor lifted so that we can look at the ceiling. And then depending on who you are in the organization, I'm either helping you craft what that ceiling lift looks like, or I'm doing it at a team level, or I'm doing it at an individual level. At every stage of that, you'll find me doing some of the best work I think I've ever done in my life. Like I said, it's been an exciting time, but also the quality of the problems and the quality of the people that come my way is just so incredible. I just couldn't be more thrilled. So that's Tacit Edge.
I wish I could articulate what I do as well as you do, but what are one or two questions that at that executive peer level group, what are one or two questions that they are asking each other that our listeners right now should be either asking their peer group or asking themselves?
I hear a lot of we're experimenting, but I don't know if we're getting anywhere. I know we're spending money, but I don't know on what. So I'm approving things that I don't understand. And I think that's probably the first time in their careers that that has happened. And so that's very destabilizing in a room for them. So I would say a lot of the quality of that conversation starts to really shift once we can acknowledge that we're uncomfortable and we feel like we're, for the first time in our careers, punching out of our weight class a little bit and the playbook of going to find a consultant isn't working. So I think that's really what shows up the most is, Christa, am I going to a consultant? Am I trying to buy this knowledge like I've been told that always worked in the past? Why isn't it working now? And it's like, well, because that context and the answer lives inside you, right? And as an executive coach, it is my mantra in the room that the person who holds the problem is the one who holds the key to the solution. I'm just here to curate a really great conversation to help you get there. And I think that's really where a lot of it starts. Secondary to that is, okay, now that I've got my literacy up, I want everybody to have it. How do we get there? Right? So it can start with Copilot training, which I'm not against doing that. Really helping other people understand the tools they already have unlocks the door to like, because I can drop inside that training nuggets of things that they need to know when they start expanding their horizons. So it can start in a very traditional way and migrate into whatever it is that they need. But I do believe that this is a leadership moment where we have to rethink that playbook of how we provide the skills and the support and just the mindset to our people around what's going to happen next. And like I said, I think a lot of leaders need support in crafting that for themselves right now because we're just in a time of the world that, like I said, nobody had this on their bingo cards, right? So here we are.
I agree, and it is a challenging time, and I think, like you said, that the peer to peer groups are great.
It's so important, even for myself. I've got an incredible group, and Brian Lanier is in that group, and he's a mutual friend between the two of us, in the leader
Brian
circle.
Lanier, he's awesome, isn't
Yeah.
he? Yeah.
And, and Mo Jessa and, I need it, right? And I know, and I'm a very hopeful person as a baseline. You can see that I have an enthusiasm for the technology. I can hold excitement and skepticism very well, right? As we navigate these really hard conversations, they can both exist at the same time in the same room. But I am hopeful that as we put this mirror up in front of us, that we will start to address the things that scare us and realize they're very human problems we're facing right now. And we can lean into our peers to get support with that in a way we've never needed before, because this is a special moment that requires it's not a good time to be going it alone.
Absolutely. And as we switch gears and close out here, but we can't leave without doing a little bit of smash or pass.
Yes, I love this. I'm so glad we're doing it. This started with my co-founder. We do this live with folks, and it's a lot of fun.
So give me the biggest tool out there that you would say would just be a big pass.
Grok.
Grok, okay. Why?
Just personal preference, and just I like things that are aware that children could be using them, and I just see other companies doing it better than how they're doing it. And so it's just personal preference. Yeah.
How about Gamma?
Oh, smash all day long. Smash, double smash. Yes.
Okay. Perplexity?
Smash as well. Great for research. So
On
helpful.
the free version, or because the pro version is pretty expensive, isn't it? Like $200 a
It
month or something?
is. It is, but I find if you are, we're all plotting courses to a place we've never been right now. So when you think about how much it costs to discover a new market, to really get close with customers and understand what you need, yeah, $200 seems a pretty small price for me to pay to get at some of those nuggets. So yeah, it's a smash.
If I was going to write a book and I was going to use ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, to help assist me, do you have a preference on which one you'd go with?
I sit on the fence between ChatGPT and Claude. I have not been a heavy Gemini user because it's only been in the past 4 months that it's gotten really good. So I would say probably my home base, who knows the most about me, would be ChatGPT. And then my next, like my validator, is Claude. So I would be probably jamming between those two if I was trying to pull that off.
Any other top of mind smash or pass for you?
I would say whisper flow. For those of us who are Gen Xers that never really learned how to type, this allows you to dictate and you just hit a button on your keyboard and you can dictate inside any application on your desktop, like any one of them. And if you say to me, well, Krista, every software has dictation tools, no, they're not all created equal. So this one, I would say, hands down, Whisperflow has been an absolute game changer. And for me, I share my screen a lot and I'm showing people how I prompt. And when you can prompt with natural language, just how you talk, you get way more out of the tool. So Whisperflow allows me to have a conversation that I'm not editing because I'm typing and because I'm not annoyed that I'm typing, right? So it's that one for sure. And also I would say Fixer AI for pre-answering emails. If you're a business owner and you've got like you monitor generic inboxes like info or admin or whatever those are as a business owner, I would say Fixer AI has been an absolute game changer for me. And just I come back from recording a great podcast like this, and I've got 30 emails in my inbox, and 27 of them already have like pre-drafted responses based on how I would reply in the past. And that is like right now, I like that.
Last one is, are you have any experience with Plaud?
No,
Plaud?
no. Which one's that?
Plaud has been great for, how we talked about earlier about recording meetings, whether on using Gong or Teams or whatever. Plaud is an AI app that somebody recommended that you just put it on your phone, and it's great for recording in-person meetings.
Amazing. Yeah, I've got Fireflies. I've got that does that exact same thing. So yeah, I would say 6 one, half a dozen another. As long as you're getting transcripts, like that's a smash.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
totally agree. Everything should be recorded, and you got to be careful with it. I got some horror stories of people having meetings recorded that they didn't know and sending it off to other people. So you got to be careful with that one,
It
right?
is, but I assume I'm being recorded now all the time. I work in the sporting community too as well, and I assume that this is the direction the world is headed. So I'm just mindful of that now all the time because I work virtually too as well. So I've know now you can't tell when you're being recorded. So I think that's just a cautionary tale for all of us that assume you are, because these devices and everything, this is the direction things are going. And yeah, you don't need consent anymore to get these recordings. So all's fair in love and software. Like I said, we're in an unregulated territory.
So if somebody came to you and said, "Hey, look, we're getting automated out, AI is taking over," what is the human advantage in the future of work?
Your proprietary data set that is you. And I know I've alluded to that, but there's a context and a knowledge that you have that is your life experience. Everything that you've seen, everything that's ever you've ever sat in, every conversation you've ever had. These things don't exist inside of these models, right? Only you have that. So really taking a look at what your gifts are, because everyone has them. There's that core set of things that you are the best at. And if you don't know what they are, go ask your friends and your peer group. Like just say to them, if there was one thing that you would always come to me for, what is it, right? What do you think my gifts are? Start there and then start aligning those gifts towards something that you really enjoy doing. And that I think is the path. I always give this recommendation to folks that are like mid-career and are kind of feeling like, is this all there is, right? That is the core of the activity that I used to do with them. But I think it's more important than ever, because if you can be leaning into your gifts every day on the job, you will never be afraid of AI ever again. You will know how to use it. You will know how to use it to amplify your gifts, and you will be the most valuable person in the room. And I have that feeling. I know what that is, and I want that for everyone.
Second to last question. So I'm a listener, and what are 2 or 3 questions that I should be asking myself? And if the answer is yes, or that's me, they should immediately call you and sign up for Tacit Edge.
I don't know what I'm doing with AI. Question number one, right? Or I think I know what I'm doing, but I don't really know where to go next. I've hit a wall. I don't really know what it can do for me. This is where we are. So if experimenting or you haven't at all, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter where you are in that journey. If you feel like you're stuck and you're sliding backwards or sideways, call me. This is the moment where education can really propel you. And if you can make a time commitment and a commitment investing in yourself, I will get you moving forward and you'll never look back.
Awesome. And where can everybody connect with you at?
You can find me online at tacit-edge.com. So that's TACIT edge edge.com. And you can book a consult with me. You can get me pretty much anytime. I run webinars all the time. There's lots of ways that we can connect, and also find me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on that platform. Happy to interact with folks. Send me DM. I love to hear what's going on with folks and where they're at. So I'm happy to help.
Well, I'm super grateful for Brian Lanier connecting us. And
Yes.
you've been awesome, Christa. I really mean it. I've learned so much from you in multiple conversations that we had. And what I would like to do for our audience is I'd like to, challenge you to think, where are you with AI? Are you focusing just on tools, or are you thinking about the mindset and the strategy both for yourself and your organization, or are you just looking at it as productivity? Because if you are, it's time to change. So thank you, Christa. You're awesome. And everybody, stay curious, keep learning, and have a great day. Thank you.
If there's one person that believes in you, it can be one person. That's what can build resilience. You could be that one person that makes a difference.
That is Colleen Stanley. She's the president of sales leadership and was named by Salesforce as one of the top 7 sales influencers of the 21st century.